I don't know if this is your first time in AA. Is your first time in Alcoholics Anonymous? Yes or no? Yes. No, it is not your first time. You've been before. Oh, good. Then you know what to do. And this time is more precious than ever, isn't it? Now it really, really means something. It's great. It's just great when you know you actually have a disease. I'm glad you're here, Hermes. All right. Now it's me. Okay, great. I'm going to do it a little out of order. This was the year when I wasn't going to be participating at all. And to be perfectly honest with you, after a couple of years in Ireland, we've been going in and out of Ireland and living there off and on for over 13 or so years. But in the last couple of years, Jane and I have had the privilege of living in Ireland for practically the entire time due to COVID, et cetera, it doesn't matter. But between that and COVID and everything, it's been a very wonderful, wonderfully wonderful, quiet time in my life. Before we, everybody always just tell us something about yourself. I tend to be a little country, and I don't necessarily like to talk about my own personal life so much. But, in the last few years, and I talk a lot about myself in this meeting over the years. So first, let me tell you that when Joe called yesterday, I don't know what time it was, Joe, middle of the day, sometime yesterday, and said, we're not doing the live meeting, it's being canceled. Can we do whatever? And I was so set in the comfort of not having to do anything, not having just in the peace of being within myself that, and I needed it. I needed this time within myself for lots of reasons. And of course, I come from that old school in Alcoholics Anonymous, not the old school that you say yes to everything. That's a very old idea, but I know when to say yes. And I thought, oh my God, there you go, Lila, thinking that you've got your whole day tomorrow, which would be today, already planned out. And I did, I had, we're going to play Scrabble, and it's a little chillier than usual in Santa Monica. Isn't that lovely? And I'm actually going to surprise Jane by willing to go on a walk without her, putting her through the tortures of hell for making me go for a walk. And I had it all, planned out. And I thought I might even get up early. There's this thing in Scotland where you go outside, and the first person to put their foot in the door, they're welcomed into the home, and they have to. And I thought, I'll shove Jane. She thinks she's going to shove me out the door, and I would then put my foot in, and then she would, greet me and welcome me and give me tea and coffee and toast and everything. And I thought, no, I'm going to actually try to get up before she does, and I'll push her out the door, and then let her, and I will make her coffee instead of her making coffee for me every morning. And, so I had all this stuff that I was fantasizing in my mind. Now, I should have known that was, first of all, I know, you can plan your next day, but you have to be really, that's what the steps in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous gives you as a result of your participation in the fellowship. That I should have known, that go ahead and plan anything you want, Lila, but prepare for a spiritual change. And that's exactly what happened, because I should have known the night before. It was, I don't know what, Friday night or something. I woke up, it comes with age that you wake up frequently. And I had in my mind, I thought, God, I can't believe it, but I'm really going to miss that meeting. And I thought, and I'll give myself some pleasure, because I have learned through the steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous how to make enough room to receive some pleasure and the gift, and how to give it to myself sometimes too. I have no more impediments in receiving, and I can give it to, I can be thoughtful and give myself things. And so I thought, well, now what I'll do is I'll look around the room, and that the chairs were laid out directly in front of me, and to my right and to my left and along the wall. And then the coffee was on the, I'm dyslexic, on the left side. And so I started in my mind to go around the room, and it was such an emotional moment for me in the evening, all by myself, all by myself. There's a, now look, I'm going to just say anything that comes to my mind. You all are used to that. I'm glad. If you're not, enjoy yourself anyway, hopefully. But there's a word in Ireland, Irva, I think you can. It's called, and it's one word, and it's one word that means an entire paragraph. Only in Gaelic would they do such a thing. The Irish, take one word and make it an entire paragraph, and it reads as follows in English: "The loneliness one feels as the cock crows when you are awake and feel your own aloneness." And when I first heard that, I didn't really understand the magnitude of it. But now I understand it for me. Because when I have those moments in the night, when I am awake, just before, and how I feel before that croak, and those of you that know in the country, when the cock crows, when you're awake and you have that, it's not an aloneness with me. I realized for my whole, and it's healed me so to know this about myself. It's the missing. What I am, it's the missing. I'm not alone. I don't feel an aloneness anymore. That's all been kind of like the wound is healed as a result of the steps of the program and the support and care and love of AA and the fellowship. But it's the missing. And that's what I was in touch with just 2 nights ago, as I was looking around the room in my mind's eye, and I saw, I don't know who's here or not here, 190 or something, out of the few hundred people that used to be in the room, and I could see the faces, and some people I don't even know their name. I certainly don't know anything about them, but I know that year after year I would see those faces, and we would look at each other, and the connection was so immensely powerful. So for the people that I would recognize as my mind went across the rows, I stopped. And, I believe in, I stopped and I was able to give a wish to each person that I recognized and wish them a happy new year. May it be a peaceful and blessed one. It was one of the most lovely things. I should have known that night that Joe McDonald would call me the next day and that I would be talking today, because that's how it works for me. That's how it works. I plan our life. I mean, a few years ago, we did that, and we ended up, changing everything. And now look at us, So what does this all mean? What this means is I can't tell you how grateful I am that you called, Joe. I have the last thing I wanted to do today was speak. I don't feel like I have anything inside of me at all. But whatever I have, I'll give it. And Marcy has been extraordinary, preparing the format, because the thing, people, when you're sober, I got sober in 1969, 52 years, for the sake of the clarity of it. People don't ask, to lead a meeting. So she was so helpful with the format and writing it all out, and the thoughtfulness from one alcoholic to another. Oh God, when you find out that it's required of you to do it with everybody in the world, not just other AA members, it's a challenge, isn't it? But she was wonderful. She made the type bigger for the part that I read in the format. And these are the things that I love about certain people in Alcoholics Anonymous: the thoughtfulness, and Joe, of course, Joe McDonald, for God's sake, he would say to me, now call me, because I knew he was coming from Colorado if it doesn't happen. And every year it was on my mind, Joe McDonald. So, so it didn't mind at all that Joe called me, because I had left off a few months ago in Ireland saying, well, if anything changes, just let me know. And of course it changed, and he let me know. And then Marcy said, oh, I don't know how it's going to work with the security. And there she has now, Mary Monks, 1997, Chicago, Illinois. And here's Glenn, who taped that very, very big convention where we were there. And it was amazing, Mary, amazing. And we've stayed in touch all of these years. And And now Mary is considered the queen of Zoom in Chicago and other places. And she is now part of the security team that Marcy wished she had yesterday. Yesterday, this all happened in less than 24 hours. Extraordinary that they pulled it together. And then, you know, Jenny calls Kay and Kay calls Penny, and Penny puts together a flyer, and bam, it's already out there. And I thought, oh my God, in heaven, you know, we're not bad. We could be running the whole world here in Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank God it's part of our traditions that we just don't do that. But either way, so I want to thank Joe and Marcy and everything. But, you know, I have to say that it is David Boyd. You know, I met David over 30 years ago in a restaurant in downtown Los Angeles at that time. I stopped working in 1992. So it would have been prior to that I had met David, and stopped working for anybody but myself. And David introduced me to this marathon meeting, and we've been doing them together ever since. And you know, if it wasn't for David, we wouldn't be gathered here today. Because if it wasn't for David, I wouldn't have had Joe, and I wouldn't have said yes to the day that I had planned to have peace within myself with Jane. So thank you, David, for your consistency. Thank you. I miss, you know, seeing you at 9 o'clock in the morning before I spoke at 10. Thank you, David, and thank you, Marcy, and thank you, Joe, and Philo, who calls, you know, and says, it's the year, Lila, let's get going, and whatever. And Penny, and all the people that Jenny that made this happen. I also want to thank all the people that we have come to know and love and care about and feel so connected. You know, I used to, when I was living in the United States all of the time and traveling quite a lot, probably one of my most favorite things was that I remember the year that Jane and I were in Rome. And, you know, we went looking for an AA meeting, and oh God, we were in the catacombs of some bloody big place in the dark, and the little columns, looking for this AA meeting and looking for the little sign, you know, with the triangle with the two little A's. And we went into this meeting, and it was in this little tiny cave-like little space. And the round ceilings and everything you would imagine in the bowels of some cathedral in Rome. And there was maybe there was a handful of people, maybe two handfuls. It was a lot. And I was just grateful because I come from that old school, you know. I sit in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and I am at peace. I sit in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and I feel safe. I sit in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous now, all these years later, 74 years of my life and 52 years of sobriety, and I have the most peace I ever have in my life. It is my place of deep meditation. Then it was a place just to be safe, and I took a deep breath. And they went around, you know, and people were talking, and I heard this voice, and I thought, oh my God, that sounds just like this guy, Roy Brown. Gone. And I thought to myself, oh my God, it sounds just like him. And it was Roy. It was Roy. And we got sober together. We got sober together at Gramercy in those meetings. And I thought, oh my gosh. And then later I was we were in Venice, California, not Venice, California, Venice, the other Venice. And I was standing by a window, just looking at some shoes, and the woman beside me said, hello, Lila. And it was a woman from our meeting here in California at 18th in Arizona. And I was like, oh my God. Now, seeing these people, and over the years, I have walked through so many airport terminals in my profession and in my personal life. And I would run into AA members who would just come up and say hello. You know, they would say hello. And oh my God, it was, Hermes, you know what I'm talking about, all of you, when you run into one of us, because, you know, I was, to help me just get in the frame of mind of it all, you know, I always read the Members I View. I carry the pamphlet, the one with Alan McGinnis with me. I carry it around, and I touch upon it many times for my own sense of comfort and healing. And, you know, they talk about that connection between one alcoholic and the other. And what was I just looking at this morning so that I could get in some sort of spiritual frame of mind? I'll tell you what it said now, because sometimes, you know, all the words that ever come out of me are words that somebody else has already said. Basically what it said was that it's the connection with one alcoholic to another. Because when I have those moments and when I have those feelings and when I'm in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and when I'm in any meeting, in any place in the entire world, and I left off without thanking the Irish and the Scots and the Parisians and all the people that we have known and all of the meetings that I have been in. Any meeting will do anywhere. I remember once being in Ireland, never mind the country at the moment, but I didn't understand the language, but the coffee smelled the same. The chairs were just as uncomfortable, but the people were so friendly. It's had the sense of it. I love the sound of AA. I love going into meetings and I love the connection first with the sound and they're always set up in a certain way, and God forbid you should change it. You know, then was it Bill Wilson himself that said, "Oh, please do not fear change in Alcoholics Anonymous." And I thought, duh. We could use that being put up on a plaque in some of the places that I have been to. Do not fear change in Alcoholics Anonymous. We have yet to have women's meetings be listed in Ireland. Can you imagine? But fear not change in Alcoholics Anonymous. So here we are now, and I'm in these meetings, and I realize that when I am in the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I am sitting beside another alcoholic. Yes, the newcomers are important, but do I think that they're the most important people in the room? Absolutely not. I think they're just newcomers that need extra care, that need extra attention, that need to be welcomed, that need to be shown the practical things in life, how to do it, how to do all those little things that you're supposed to do. I'm not going to get into all that because we have one newcomer who's been here before, and God knows he knows now. So we're good. And he'll carry a bigger message than even I would, to be perfectly honest with you, because he knows what it's like. But for the grace of God, or may so go I. The only reason I don't do that is because I have this relationship with the fellowship and with the meetings, and I understand what they're about. And when I walk into those rooms and I'm sitting with other members of Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't know then that what was happening for me was the beginning of the opening up, the making room for the spiritual connection that would, if I were to maintain it, and I were to use the steps to make room and make room and make room, and I were to have this spiritual connection with the God of my own understanding, that was going to be what would change me to such a point where I was actually almost silent inside, that I understood the missing and I could live with it for the first time in my life, that I could be present within myself for the first time in my life, and I'm 74 years of age, that I could be within me, that I would be safe, that it's just an extraordinary thing. All happened because why? Because when I sit in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous to this day, I don't see anybody but another alcoholic. I don't see color. I don't see sex. I don't have any opinions on anything. I am so not interested in what people have and their bullshit. Then it happens in AA too. I don't care what you look like. I don't care the condition that you're in. I care about how I feel sitting with another alcoholic. And that's all I see in AA. I just see other people. And I have come to realize that perhaps the most important people are in the room is the person sitting beside me. You know, we carry this message to alcoholics and those who still suffer. Yeah, the person who's sitting beside me may be suffering. They may be sober a tremendous number of years, and they may just beginning to get the things I have seen happen to so many of my friends in Alcoholics Anonymous. Let me tell you, they go, they die, they move on, they have illnesses. And that is what, you know, if they told me all the yets I would have to have and face and go through, I don't know. But I will tell you that what happens is you begin to recognize that the suffering alcoholic is the person who's that day not feeling themselves, that day disconnected from their God, that day. And I have a special feeling for people that keep coming back, David. Keep coming back. Keep filling those seats, Roy. Keep filling, sitting there. Keep being of service. Oh, come on. This is what it's about for people like us. This is what it's about. That's the connection. That's what keeps me coming back. I was so thrilled to be back in Ireland in these little meetings, in these little rooms, and they would, at the end of the meeting, I loved the fact that nobody knew me, kind of, and that I would put the chairs away, and I would love to wash the cups in the kitchen, because that's what I was doing. That's who I am. That's the kind of AA member I am. I never want to forget that I'm just a right-sized member of Alcoholics Anonymous sitting in that meeting. I'm not anything special. I don't go in there with any need to have, no, don't misunderstand. I like having my own spot, my own seat. I sit like a curmudgeon over me, because, hey, we're old and it's easier if you fold your arms, and yes, I've learned over the years how to be a better member of Alcoholics Anonymous and participate in the meetings. We used to attend this meeting regularly. And Jane would say to me, do you realize you're sighing? And I'd say, what are you talking about? She'd say, Lila, you're sighing. And you only sigh when you disagree with what you're hearing. And I thought, I don't do that. And of course, within the next meeting, now, I can't tell you how many years I've probably been sighing with, oh God, do we have to hear that, or whatever, all these things. And I, of course, immediately thought, no, what is my job? My role in Alcoholics Anonymous is to show up and sit in those chairs, participate when I can, and when it's appropriate for me, and in the balance of my own life, and to continue to grow. I remember, years ago, Mary introduced me to a woman. At that time, she was 46 years sober. I wasn't at all. And she said, keep growing, stay green. And I thought, Jesus Christ, there's another one of those AA things. Stay green, for Christ's sake. Now, little did I know that years later, I knew exactly what she meant. I've had the privilege of staying sober long enough to actually live in the 10th step of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I believe that today I live in the realm of the spirit. I come from that old school. For 4 years, 35 to around 39-ish, there were no books, there were no rules, there were no steps, there was nothing. There was just one alcoholic talking to another. What would have happened if one alcoholic didn't talk to another? And you know what I have found out? They didn't talk to one another to tell them what to do. They talk to one another to talk about what they do to stay sober. That's what we're supposed to be doing here, talking to one another about how we stay sober. Oh, yes, you're not going to get a drunk log from me because A, we don't need it in this kind of meeting. And B, there's lots of people that'll give it to you. I want to talk to you about what it's like to stay sober through thick and thin, what it's like to stay sober when you're rich and when you're poor, what it's like to survive your own childhood and finally give it up, finally let the wound be healed, finally have somebody not touch you and go, oh my God, finally have your character defects no longer needed them to protect you, finally feeling safe enough in the world so that really nobody can harm you. The only person that casts a shadow on my light is myself. And so consequently, I have never needed, nor have I never understood more the need for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. The program is the steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Your own way, find your own way. Nobody can light your lamp, but you'll find lots of people that you can follow that will help you. Every word out of my mouth, everything is my own experience. I never, ever, 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 ever lie or make anything up in Alcoholics Anonymous. I will change my mind tomorrow. But today, this is how I feel today. When I was reading this thing, just to put myself in the mood, it said this pamphlet from AA, the alcoholic in AA has believed that the physical aspects of our disease would have little import if they were not accompanied by equally progressive spiritual deterioration. That's what happened to me. That's why I was blessed that I knew I had the disease of alcoholism, the disease. Yes, I had a bunch of symptoms. And when I drank, I had a craving that because of my disease, unlike other people who can go and get help with all their symptoms, I drank to escape mine. And because I drank and have a disease, I had a craving. And I know that I cannot drink again, no matter what, for the rest of my life. How I do that is a day at a time. That's what I was taught. I was told that I had to go to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous for the rest of my life. I had no intention of that happening. I intended to stay for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, I was checking off the days. And how I was going to do that was one meeting at a time. I was told that I had to read the big book and the 12 and 12 and the literature in Alcoholics Anonymous. And there would be a little guy that they assigned to you, a little greeter when you're new, and they would give you all that literature, which they did. And I will never be able to do that. I have no intention of doing that. It's all like nonsense anyway. How do you do that? You do that one page at a time. And then they told me that I would have to find a God of my own understanding, and that would take me the rest of my life. And yes, it has, one day at a time. And I can't wait for the rest of the days that I may have the privilege and the gratitude to live this life. Because if how I feel within myself today is any indication of what may occur for me as I now proceed in the next few years, of God willing, my sobriety, my God, I can't wait. It couldn't be better. And yet, believe it or not, since I expect miracles, I'm one of those, I believe in them, I expect to actually feel better. And I can't believe I feel this good. I can't believe that I'm sitting in front of a bunch of people and I'm willing to just like blather on like this, rabbit on, as they would say in Ireland, just go on and on and on, But unfortunately for you, they have another saying, and it says the dog is on the road, which means too late now, you have me, and we'll see what happens. So as I was reading this, it says, if then alcoholism is largely a spiritual disease, it requires a spiritual healing. The last thing I ever wanted to hear about, and for years, it was really about God. I had no God. I was not interested in God. I had no whatever about God. God had never been good to me, my family, or anybody else, I had preconceived ideas about some of the people in Alcoholics Anonymous, that they weren't all good. And I knew about that because my father was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and one of the first members in AA in Ireland, and later become one of the sickest human beings I've ever known. So I understand it all. I understand that I can't leave no matter what. I must go to these meetings no matter what. I have to continue going, even if I remember the year was 18-ish. So you're sober when I thought A is not enough, Well, it is. And I was frightened. And it was a result of the fear that AA was not enough, that I ended up going to talk to different people. And I ended up finding the big book and reading the 12 and 12 and making it my own. I thought, if I don't make it my own, Lila, you don't have enough trust in anybody. You don't even trust a God. You have to figure out a way. You must find a way to make these steps your own. You must open yourself up. You must. Because I was terrified that I might leave Alcoholics Anonymous, and I wasn't going to let that happen. And so, that's my kind of story. And then this, it says here, I believe it lies in the way the steps are presented. They are reports of action taken. God, nothing is more annoying than me to have somebody go on and on about how we should do things. Really? That person is usually the person that doesn't practice the principles on a day-to-day basis, but they sure know how to talk about it. I fear for people. Now, at the beginning, in the first few years, that's your job. Your job is to take that newcomer, make sure that they clean their house, sometimes really clean their house, clean out their car, know how to balance their checkbook so that they start paying the rent, teach them how to live. That's what they did with us. They taught us how to live because we were all bankrupt in every area. A practical program of application. That's what they told us what to do, how to live life on life's terms. And then you find out a few years later, oh my God, I'm like an emotional wreck here. The sobriety thing is like, Jesus, I had no idea. Of course you had no idea. You were drunk. And when you weren't drunk, you were shocked that you were sober. And then you were shocked and thank God you ran into somebody that knew what you needed to do was, eat a banana, take a bath, read the big book, any page will do. You ran into somebody that said, look, drunks don't put their cap back on the toothpaste. toothpaste, you put your cap back on the toothpaste every single solitary morning. And sure enough, and I would look at the toothpaste and I would think, as long as I put this cap back on the toothpaste, I'm good today, And I have never, ever, ever in all of my sobriety not put my cap back on the toothpaste because somebody told me drunks don't put their cap back on the toothpaste, but I do. And what does it do? It's a ritual. It's a part. It reminds me that I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. So many little things. And at the beginning, that's what you do. You make sure that person that you're sponsoring is eating. How many people have we lost in AA? They're jumping off bridges or leaving AA because they just needed a sandwich, for God's sake, I mean, how many people have you talked to and they're crazy out of their minds, maybe it's on a day you were going to kill yourself, but they called and, they're going to kill themselves. So you have to help them before you help yourself because you get trained in Alcoholics Anonymous. It becomes a practice. And that's what happened to me. It became a practice. And, I just said, look, eat a sandwich and call me back. And you have a completely different conversation with the person. And how many people over the years, when people are new, I can't breathe. Oh my God, I can't breathe. Well, are you in the bed? Usually they are. Well, slide out now, put one foot on the ground. And when you stand on the ground on your 2 feet, make your bed, dress your bed. And we used to have to do this without cell phones and Zoom and every other bloody connection. We were doing on phones that were like connected to the wall. You could only move so far, and you hope to Christ that, you could talk to them and tell them, okay, now that you've done that, go take a shower and wash it away, watch yourself, watch all that go down the drain and call me back. And they would call you back. And then you would say, now go make yourself because, you can't be running around with your cell phone. Go make yourself a cup of coffee and a slice of toast and call me back. And they would call you back. And by the time you finished with all the call me backs, neither one of you were killing yourself and you were figuring out where the closest meeting was and who was going to pick who up. Now, that's Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how it works. And you do that enough times. I don't care how long you're sober. You will react accordingly when somebody reaches out for you for help. You will react accordingly and you will eventually know when you need it for yourself. And when that day comes, you will not be talking about what they're doing and what they're not doing, what they should be doing and how they should be doing it. You'll be talking about, and it says the steps we took. Let me tell you, it's a trick. They just like that whole we thing so that the fellowship and the meetings and all of that, you get used to that. You get used to the support. You become one of the we's. And then all of a sudden, you have to turn around and you have to become an I. And it's not an I that seeks me, although there's a lot of them in AA that are still doing that. You become the person that reports not on what they have done or they should do or what we need to do, but you report on what you have done. The responsibility. When you take responsibility for your own practice of your own spiritual connection with the God of your very own understanding. I'm referring to this because I kind of need a little help here. It said it's also apparent by now, and I hope that AA is in the program of action. Well, let's see. There's only 3 steps, 5th, 9th, and 12th, that involve other people. The other 9 concern themselves with the interior life of the alcoholic. It's true. Let me go to the stuff that I like the most because this guy believes this Alan McGinn, what was his name anyway? An Irishman, of course, he believed that the most important word in Alcoholics Anonymous was share. Share. How many meetings do I go into and they say, what is that thing when people, share and they say crosstalk or something? If somebody's sharing in a meeting and I feel that they said something to touch me, I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to share with them and say, I really was affected by what you said. It's not crosstalk. We support each other in Alcoholics Anonymous. There's so many things that have occurred over the years that are like limitations to the freedom. Do you think for 1 minute that if two of us were gathered and one of us was going to drink, there would be any limitation as to what we would say to one another. Sharing would be the most important thing. And after you shared that you were going to drink, do you think that and if you had been a member of AA now and you went out, this is who I'm talking about, not newcomers. There's a whole set of new things for newcomers. Believe it or not, as you all know that have got time here, there's rules for newcomers. There's a way you treat them. There's a way you do it. There's the practical program of the thing. There's how to live your life, how to live life on life's terms, how to begin the steps, when to begin the steps, how to do step 1, step 4 and 8 are combined, how to do 5, all of that. You're not worried about 6 and 7 and 10 and 11. You're worried about 1, 4, 5, 8, 9, 12. That's it with the newcomer. They have plenty of time then to go out and figure out how emotionally sick they really are and how much their disease of alcoholism really affected them. And they deteriorated to such a degree. And then you bring them back and they're ready for a spiritual experience. In such case, they're going to run into people like you and me who are going to say, now it's time. Now it's time to work these and look at them in a different way. Now it's time to go to meetings where they talk about the steps. Now it's time to talk to people who have that little something, who have that extra thing. We're talking about a God of their own understanding. This is no longer a flight from reality, because how many years in Alcoholics Anonymous did I still participate in a flight from reality? I put a lot of things before my God. I needed to build myself into this image of independence. And my means of independence was financial insecurity. So if I had more than you, or I had enough, and this image and the things and the what have you. And, I put a lot of things in front of that God, because I was still running away from, I wasn't in reality. I still put things, one of the greatest harms I have found with so many people that are sober a long time is they go into fantasy. But no, AA for me is a flight into reality. It's a flight into reality. That is what I want. I can't imagine not facing reality. I can't, it makes me shiver to think that I would not be in reality. It makes me shiver. And when I look back, and that's the other benefit, and now I can't address it on a specific basis, but in the last few years, when Jane and I had the opportunity to spend most of our time in Ireland, it's my home country, I had no idea the effect it would have. Now, Jane's the first person in her family from her great-grandparents coming over. I actually was the person coming over myself from Ireland. And so to be close to it and to go home, oh God, you have no idea. I had no idea. I mean, over the years, I used to fly into Dublin or Shannon, and I wanted to kiss the ground when I arrived in Ireland. And I just thought it was me being just myself, just being emotional and everything. I waited until the 70s to become an American citizen, because I just felt disloyal to the country, if I gave up my citizenship. And yet I thought, I'm going to spend the rest of my life, my immediate family are here in the United States. And so consequently, when we buried my brother as a result of this disease in 1975, he was 21. I was 5 or 6 years sober at the time. It was absolutely difficult. But then I thought, no, now I have a brother and he's buried in the United States, so I can and will be a United States citizen, because now I have somebody in the ground here. Later, I was to add to that collection with my sister. I've just been healed from that wound recently. In the last 3 years, as those of you that have attended these meetings know, one of the first people I met in Alcoholics Anonymous was a woman named Gretchen, and we became friends right away. And I would say that in the last many, God knows, 48 years of it, we spoke pretty much all the time, every week, every couple of weeks, And it wasn't that we had anything to say. We were just old shoes together. We couldn't be more different, She came from this very, very wealthy first family of Los Angeles people, that had originally come from, Joaquin and that, anyway, big Spanish and Mexican influence, and very wealthy and everything. And I came from the bogs of Ireland, with periodic visits to the city of Dublin, with my granny. But I came from the country in Ireland, and then lived in Canada and the United States, and we went through the ups and the downs of it all, and years later, it just makes me laugh to think we were such friends. We knew each other so intimately and so well, such just good friends. And old shoes, and we were so different, and she could give a damn about anything, and I was all into money, property, and prestige half the time, and we would periodically just get in the car and decide we were going to go down to Palm Springs, and we would stay at the specific hotel, and I had all the stuff that you're supposed to have to make yourself feel better. I can assure you that it's a privilege. Don't misunderstand now. I like the fact that we're financially secure and all of the rest of it, and that my madness gave us that for the piece of it. But that is not why, if we had to downsize, you would still come here and you would get a better cup of tea and slice of toast with a lot of butter and jam than in almost any other house. And we could do that in a tent. And Jane and I are the same. It's not about the outside. It's about the inside. But Jane, Gretchen and I, this is to show you the friendship. She was at that time she was a big cat and dog person, oh Jesus. And I was afraid of dogs, I wouldn't even go into, I saw her house her houses when she would buy them or sell them. But I never went in because the dogs would bark, and I had this thing about dogs, and I thought, Jesus, and because I had been chased by a rabid dog. Long story, doesn't matter. So here we go to these hotels. Now, this is just who I used to be like in AA, it was amazing. And we go down to this hotel in Palm Springs, and the guy would open the trunk of my car, which was the kind of car that you would, think a person that was financially insecure and that needed to absolutely, now I do it for comfort, but then it was because I needed you to know, I had it all going on. And they opened the trunk of the car, and out would come my bag with all the little initials and everything that was appropriate on it, looked great. And Gretchen would have her stuff, the first time it happened, I almost died, in a brown trash bag, because she was busy. She had a lot going on. She had all those dogs and cats all over the goddamn house. She had this little space, so she'd throw her stuff for the trip in a brown trash bag, and that's what the guy would put on the thing that he brought into the hotel. And that was Gretchen. What was the miracle of this? Why am I telling you these things? I'm telling you, this is the life. This is what happens. They die. My brother dies. My sister dies. God knows Jane and I have buried so many people. I have buried all the people that I let to sit there in Ohio Street. That's why I don't go back. I can't go back. The memories are too hard for me. They're all gone. When you're sober as long as I am, the road narrows. The road narrows. And what happened with Gretchen and the dogs? And I'll tell you the story because it represents my progress. It represents Alcoholics Anonymous. It's everything that I am. We were thoughtful to one another. We would joke and talk, but every now and then, as our people that we refer to as people like sponsors or sponsorship type people in Alcoholics Anonymous passed away, we were stuck with each other. And so as a friend, be careful, you're going to mature these friendships for the rest of your life. Then, the day would come when would be time to put on the hat, and we would know with each other when we were talking, when I had to put on that AA hat and she would put on the AA hat. And I'm a different person when I put on that AA hat. Believe me, I listen differently. I listen with my AA spiritual ears that Mary Real used to call them. And I listen and I look at you with my spiritual eyes, and I hear you with my spiritual soul. And I have one that can hear and feel. And so she would provide that. We would do that for each other. And the only good news is we never went off the cliff at the same time. We were always there. And I remember calling her saying, I need direction. I need to call you every day because my mother is dying, and blah, 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 blah. So the day came when Gretchen was going to die, and we knew she was going to die. So I would be going up to Oregon, where she lived at that time, all of the time. And she had these dogs, and these were big dogs, and they barked. They had a big bark. And just barking on the phone, you said, yeah. And here I am now, we're sober a ton of years, and I'm going up, and I know I have to go to her house. And I stayed at the hotel, and I was walking down the path along the beach there, and she was in the middle of the lane, and she was holding Parker, one of the big chocolate Labrador dogs. And I was walking toward her, and I thought, Lila, you're going to go into the house. There's 3 of these big dogs, and they have big barks. But she held the dog with such command, and I felt so safe and so protected. I felt that feeling that comes over me when I walk into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous or I'm with an AA member. And I walked toward her, and I knew how much I loved her and how much I cared. And I knew that no matter what was going to happen to me, I was going to walk through that front door. And I might die from the heart attack, but I was going to be able to do it, and I would do it. And when I got up to Parker, I was more worried about, I was so nervous, I would make the dog nervous, and, they would attack and whatever. None of that happened. Obviously, I don't have time for the whole story. But I go in the door, and the dog, she said, no, what's going to happen is I'm going to open the door. They're going to jump on you. You're short, they're big, and they're going to be as tall as you. That's all right, she said. They're going to just, jump up on you. They're going to bark a lot, and then they're going to stop and go away. I was paralyzed. I immediately start saying, God, help me. God, help me. God, help me. God, help me. Sure enough, I walked in the door. The dogs jumped on me. I froze. I don't know what happened. I actually blacked out during that period of moment. And then the dogs went away, and thereon I went to the house, and the dogs would come and go, and they didn't bother with me at all. I now know that when I was on a bathroom floor, coming up that porcelain sink, holding on, drunk out of my mind, that I was coming out of that blackout, and I heard myself say, God, help me. And I was enraged that I had asked that God to help me, because I did not need that God. When I was around 18 to 20 years sober, I knew I needed a God again. I needed a God, and I started to say, help me, help me, help me. And as I was able to walk into that house and be jumped on by all those dogs, that's what Alcoholics Anonymous and the staying. I have stayed in Alcoholics Anonymous no matter what. You should never give your seat up in Alcoholics Anonymous no matter what. No one has a right to tell you or do anything to you that would remove you or give you any thought to leave Alcoholics Anonymous. You have to stay if you're an alcoholic of my kind. If you ended up on a bathroom floor, if you ended up knowing that you had to find a God, if you ended up finding the steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, if you knew that years into your sobriety, you were literally powerless over your need to connect with a power greater than yourself, that your unmanageability was totally 100% your responsibility, that if all the if-onlys and all the regrets had to be gone, that you could come to believe that you would be restored so that you could go back to being that child that you once were, to the child that ran after leprechauns and believed in fairies and all the rest of it, that you could come back to yourself, that you would make a decision that you were going to do that you were going to make a decision to not do your life by yourself anymore. 1, 2, 3. Problem, solution, decision. Ask, pause, receive. And that you're going to take a look at that inventory. And this was an inventory that only you would be on. This is an inventory where you were going to look at, if only I had done that, and oh God, I regret that. Because how to forgive yourself. I have an unforgivable list that I still have a few people I don't forgive, but I have forgiven myself. I have forgiven myself. And I have talked to somebody like a Gretchen, like somebody that I really trust, that understands what I'm trying to do, that I'm trying to make room inside, that I'm trying to get out of the past, that I'm trying to get to the 10th step. I'm trying to get down there so that I can pause. I'm trying to get down there so that I can continue to take inventory and make sure I'm protecting my insides. I have something to protect. I have found myself. And as I'm finding myself, it's because I have found you. I've gone out of my way to be of service and to help and to be available in Alcoholics Anonymous. And in listening to you, I have found myself. And so consequently, step 5 then becomes talking to the right person, getting the support. If you don't have a sponsor that's available, if you don't have a sponsor that's kind, that periodically feeds you and gives you tea and toast, you need that. That's what we need when we're sober. We need somebody to talk to. We need somebody that we can say anything to. And in 6, God, I've had to accept. Jesus, I've had to accept so much. I had to accept so much about myself. And yet, you know something? There's a responsibility that's in 6. And I can do in 6, I'm responsible for whatever I have to do. And I have had to get current in my day. I have had to have my yesterdays no longer dominate me, so that my character defects are no longer needing to protect me. I don't have character defects that need to protect me. And if I'm off and if I'm a little crusty on a given day, it's because I am not myself. I'm not within myself. When I am within myself, I'm perfectly easy and calm as a cucumber and pleasure to be around. But when I'm not, I will protect myself. And those are my character defects, and they've got nothing to do with you. And so I accept all of that, and I look at it, and I take responsibility to do what I can do. And I ask God questions. I live in the question of life. Oh God, how I don't want the answer. As a result of living in the question of life, I'm here today because I didn't know the answer. What am I going to do about all those people? Well, I'm going to wish them well. I'm going to wish them well. Little did I know that I'd be wishing them well, some of them in person. Marcy's giving me a sign here. Okay, great. So there I am in 6. Now, there's times in 6 when I can't do it. I just am tired sometimes, and I just can't carry it, and I don't know what to do. So I ask the question, and I get out of the way. And, you know, there's this saying in AA, one of the best of all, you know, if you don't know what to do, do nothing. Do you know what doing nothing involves for people like us? It's a huge spiritual experience. And so to do nothing, I go to 7 and I say, help me. The same prayer I prayed in a bathroom floor. If I can be helped coming out of a blackout in a state of semi-unconsciousness, I'm certain that I can be helped. I have been helped. I have come to believe. I have come to know. I no longer come to believe in the second step. I have been restored. And what have I been restored to? I have been restored to my yesterdays have met my today, and my tomorrow is yet to reveal itself. Does that mean that we don't plan? Of course we plan. We can't wait to get back to Ireland. I can't wait to go home. I feel like I'm visiting the United States, and I love that too. But I can't wait to go home. I cannot wait to go back. I've had 2 years of peace and quiet and getting over the grief of all my own if onlys and all my own regrets, of forgiving myself for all the things that I have done, of taking those inventories that are so personal and so private and so about me. And so I'm at the 10th step of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I will continue to take inventory to make sure that today is easy because I'm here and I'm with you. Today, I will be present within myself, and I will then know that I'm on my way to 11, because every step prepares you for the other one, doesn't it? And I will be going to 11, where I will be given the power, and I have been given the power to carry it out, to stay sober, to put the cap on the toothpaste, to eat the banana, take the bath, read the big book, read the 12 and 12, be of service. All these years, I've been given the power to walk through and bury my best friend, my best friends. You don't think it was Joe is here today from London? Well, you know, the pain I experienced for her when she lost Georgia. Oh my God, come on, but for the grace of God. And that is what it's about in 11. But for the grace of God, I am here to tell you, you will survive it all if you continue to go to meetings at Alcoholics Anonymous. You will survive it with peace within you and find yourself, because we are people in search of God. I believe Carl Jung was correct. And as a direct result of that, I believe that the 11th step will give us the power, and that it is there for you if you access it. But it takes all those other 9 steps to get it. So good luck with that. Good luck with understanding what makes you unmanageable and what you need to do to be restored to your very self today. Ask those questions of your God and make a decision that you will be a partner with something. My God, of course. What has that changed? My God is my God, G-O-D, Ghost on Demand. My God are my nana and my granny and my uncles and all the people that I missed so much when I was taken from my country. All those people, they are my God. My mother, my mother was, you know, I fell in love with my mother as she was dying. And my brother and my sister and Jane's family. I mean, there's so many. And this will be part of my life going forward. And it's all right, because I can live with the missing. I have missed myself my entire 30, 40 years of my sobriety, and I have found the one thing, the greatest gift of ever, that I know for a fact that I'm an alcoholic. I know I have a dis-ease. The rest of it is the story. I'll listen to your story once, but I'll never listen to your story twice if you're sober any given period of time. Again, different rules for the different people. I'm not interested in the story. I'm interested in where are you today spiritually? What the hell do you have to do to like yourself, to care for yourself, to respect yourself, to treat yourself as you do other members of Alcoholics Anonymous? How are you giving to yourself? Are you able to receive? Because I don't know about you, but I had no receiving capacity. I do now. I received that coffee in the morning and I thank Jane for it. I love our life. I thank her daily. We say to each other, you know, most days, will you spend the day with me? We don't even have to fill in the blanks. I never leave the kitchen without saying, Jane, is there something I can give you? Do you need anything? How did I learn all that? From washing cups in a kitchen, talking to other drunks in Alcoholics Anonymous, from putting away the chairs and leaving everywhere better than I have found it. It's the smallest things. The first 5 years of my sobriety, they're like the country to me. They're the richness of the soil. They're the land with which I have grown. And I now know that as a result of today, speaking to you now, and I'm really looking forward to I love the Q&A. I love the challenge of it. I love it forcing me to be more inside myself. I hope you come up with some really off the wall, whatever kind of questions you choose. I'm delighted to spend this time with you. I think it is time for me to turn this over to Marcy, who's going to, did I ever do yeah, we did. Let's see, wait a minute. Marcy, number 5. Marcy, it's all yours.
All right. Hi, I'm Marcy. I'm an alcoholic. We will now observe the 7th tradition, which states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining